have the scholars gotten early Genesis wrong? I believe they have. There's a lot of clues for that. One of them that shows up pretty early in the text is the first tolodoth phrase, Genesis 2:4 through 2:6, right before the second account. Now, the standard theology of the day is that this is a preface for chapter 2, for the second creation account, and is not looking back to the first account. I'm going to challenge that idea. I'm going to make the case that the textual elements fit much better as it being mostly a summary of the previous account, as would be the case if the tablet theory were correct, and only a little bit a bridge to the second account. So let's get started on that. All right, here you see an interlinear of verse 2:4, where it says, "These are the generations of." I've got it circled. The word generations, it means not just generations. It can mean that, but what it really means is an accounting. These are the accounts of the heavens and the earth. And one evidence for that is there is no genealogy given as there is in the many of the other times it's used. Often it is used at the end of an account where they have a genealogy on the other side, but this, if you go forward in chapter 2, it doesn't discuss the heavens and the earth. It discusses some things that happen in the garden and what God did in the garden, but it doesn't say anything about what happened in the heavens, doesn't say anything about what happened in the oceans, doesn't say a lot of things that are included in the first account. So if you just look at that, it really makes sense to say this is a summary of the previous account, as is the case in the tablet theory. And if you don't know what the tablet theory is, it's that Moses didn't write early Genesis from a blank slate. He had a series of accounts from his ancestors, and those accounts formed the basis into which he edited the first 36 chapters of Genesis. So that's one question mark right there. It says it's the account of the heavens and the earth, and yet it doesn't say anything about the heavens, doesn't say anything about the oceans, really doesn't say much as we go forward about any of the textual elements going forward. It fits much better as a summary of what things were like looking back before God started filling the earth. And it does say that in the day that Yahweh made these things, but that just goes to show you how flexible the term yom is in the Hebrew language. It just means that the time in which he did this. So some people are confused by it. Says, well, this is talking about a single day, whereas the other account is talking about 6 days. The word is just that flexible, folks. So here we go. That's the first thing that doesn't make sense. Heavens and the earth, second account isn't about that. All right, let's talk about Genesis 5:1. There it has a tolodoth phrase. It's before the genealogy, that's true, but it also has another word, which is translated book, the seper. This is the book of Adam, which I'm saying was written by maybe not Adam, but his near descendants, which was common with tolodoths, telling who it was the story of. But this would include the first account, the generations of the heavens and the earth, and the second account, the account of Adam. And then after they told the narrative part, they would then, maybe on the back side of the tablet, have a genealogy, which was tracked over time, added to each generation. So what if this isn't it, what is the book of Adam that uses the word book? I think it's 2 accounts, 2 records, 2 tolodoths put together. So verse 4, these are the generations or the records of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And then chapter 2 says nothing about the heavens, nothing about the seas. And not only that, but we have a conjunctive and on verse 5 there, which means that it's joined. Verse 5 is talking about whatever verse 4 is talking about. And really, the same thing happens at 7. So I don't want to say that this isn't at all a bridge. What I'm saying is Adam, he had the story about how things got to be where he was, and then the story abruptly starts with when he's created. And those two accounts together are the book of Adam. And so he is running it all together. It's not that it's not a bridge to the second account at all, but it's the tolodoth of the first account which he connected to the second account. So these verses are not talking about what happened in chapter 2. They're hearkening back to what happened in the first account in chapter 1 to set the stage for his appearing. So, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. Okay. Some people say, well, Mark, your idea of, and it's not really just my idea, many people are accepting it now, that Adam was specially created by God. He was inside the garden. There was also a population created by God outside the garden. And they say, well, that can't be true here because it's saying there was no man to till the ground before Adam was created. Well, if you take that reasoning, there was no plants either. And yet we see in the previous account, before man, the plants were created, or they were made by the earth. So that can't be right. It has to be what I'm saying. It has to be a summary of what things were like, almost like the inside jacket cover of a book. It'll give you a little synopsis of the story. Maybe it won't tell you the end, but it'll kind of get you into it. And so that's what this is. It's the tolodoth phrase within a little summary of the account, and it's leaving you hanging. So you want to read it, just like we do today with the little thing on the back of the book or on the inside jacket. So it's not that people change or tools change. So before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field. So if there's no men, there's no plants either, right before Adam was created. And we know that's not true because in the second chapter, does God even create any plants? He does not. He just makes to grow certain kinds of plants that were good for food. Where did the others come from? Chapter 2 doesn't speak to that because chapter 2 is not really a second creation account. It is a recursion into the first account, takes something barely mentioned there, and expands and tells that story. And when that story happens, all this other stuff had already been done. So that's another place, textually, Genesis 2, 4 through 6 does not fit with the second account, fits better as a look back at the midpoint of the previous account. Let's go on to verse 6. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Again, this is directly contradicted. I mean, where is this mist in chapter 2? It doesn't show up. It doesn't show up. If you go into chapter 2, it talks about a river coming out of Eden to water the garden and nothing about a mist. So you almost might say, this is a gap theory I do approve of. I don't approve of a gap theory, between in the first few verses of Genesis chapter 1. But at the end of chapter 2, there is a gap there. And it's very glorious the way these gaps appear, but that's not what this video was about. This video is about getting anybody with an open mind to see that these textual elements do not fit with the second account. They're not talking about the second account except as a bridge to it. They are really a summary of the first account. Now, there's a lot more support for the tablet theory than just this. And it's a shame that the scholars have not given it a fair chance. If it's not right, they haven't explained well why it's not right. They've made a few suggestions that do not really apply if you just make a few simple and reasonable modifications to the theory. It's almost like they set up a straw man and knocked that one over and say, see, we beat the theory up. No, you didn't. You constructed the worst and most rigid and inflexible version of the theory and came up with some good ideas about why that's not true. But you haven't really undermined the theory. And here we see it makes a lot more sense. And this would be consistent with the tablet theory being correct. So I've talked real fast today. It's Christmas Day. I got some kids to open presents, and we've got the flu. So, I've got plenty to do today. But I do appreciate your time. I thank you for listening. Merry Christmas. May God bless you.